Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. So today we are back again with the next class rank up video. So actually, before we go any further, we are going to adjust these in the order of ranking. So 6th class is still top 15, and then we know the next one is going to be science top 15. We're gonna carry on with the next ones, but we have made it to the video number 6. We have all of our classes ranked, and well, I ranked skill at the bottom. Before I go any further, it is super important to note that all of these are my thoughts and opinions, and current game relevance and trends kind of mixed into one. We do not have pure statistics, nor I know how one would make them. However, I will flat out state that I do value the competitive game modes the most due to like 2 or 3 different separate reasons. Number one is because I think what gives champions the value right now is the fact that these are the champions that people use when losing matters. And what I mean by that is quite simple, that anywhere else in the game outside of the competitive game modes, you will win eventually. As in, if you do a quest path and you bring in the wrong champion, you can either revive through it, or you can skill through it, or you can just use a suboptimal champion, make yourself life a bit harder and a longer fight, and you can still get it done. Ultimately, it doesn't matter as much because stakes are virtually non-existent. However, when you lose a Battlegrounds match, there is no revive. When you lose Lion Sword, that's it. You have lost. And that's why the champions that are getting used by the most skilled players in the most kind of like relevant and meaningful situations are the ones that I personally value the most. Because those are the ones that we invest our catalysts in, those are the ones that we give our 6 stones in, and those are the ones that we give our time and attention to learn to their fullest abilities. Obviously, you can achieve still great results perfectly mastering some, other champions, but ultimately there is a good reason why these are the top champions. There are few instances when, like, let's say, on average, more average champion ends up getting more popular because of who he counters. And let's say, I personally use this example always, like, I think Spiral is mid as mid champions come, but Spiral just happens to be a very good counter to Serpent and Dark Phoenix, so for quite a while, Spiral was a very popular champion for the players, even though, let's say, I think White Tiger is better. I think White Tiger has better abilities, better damage, better whole bunch of stuff. And Spiral was just the more used one. But in general, we have kind of like clear correlation in between the champions that are meta and the champions that will do the best job across the entire game everywhere. And again, you're perfectly free to disagree, do it respectfully, and I am not trying to insult your ancestors. I am not trying to, rage bait here. This is the way I see the game. If you see it differently, that is perfectly fine. However, as I am human, I might overlook things, I might, evaluate things, and these rankings themselves, they do change and adjust depending on what kind of content Kabam keeps releasing, what kind of champions Kabam keeps releasing, so on and so forth. Right, all that said, let us take a look at all the skill top 10. So yeah, Nick Fury, Bullseye, Yelena, Crossbones, Okoye, Lumatrix, Mantis, Black Panther, Silver, Atuma, /Gorg, and Hitmonkey. That was the old ranking, and it definitely has changed quite a bit. So let's jump in there. There's also going to be a plenty of champions that I personally like, and I'm not putting in this top 15 list. One of them, for instance, will be Elsa Bloodstone. I think Elsa has always had a very dedicated, loyal following of players, and she can achieve some very good results at times, for sure. Like when we had that skill shrug off meta, Elsa was putting in work. We have Frankencastle, that's brand new in the game. I'm not entirely sure where I'd rank him. That's the flat, God's honest truth. I don't have enough experience to kind of like have a full picture. I know that he's not making massive waves in the metagame for sure, but I also don't know exactly where he would land, but you can make your comments on that. I'm not ranking Kingpin in here because, technically he's still not in the game as 7-star. And Jabari didn't quite make it. Massacre, one of my all-time favorite champions, didn't quite make it in there as well. The poor lad has kind of fallen off the cliff, and I'm not ranking Valkyrie because Valkyrie is also just getting released now as 7-star. But let's start with spot number 15, Shang-Chi. And here's the thing, I have always respected Shang-Chi for what he is, and he's kind of like a skill nuke type champion with plenty in terms of versatility, but I never kind of gelled with the guy too much. At the same time, we can see him from time to time here and there in the game, and I do want to acknowledge that. Initially, I thought it's like Shang-Chi's like, quite a scary chap, and he's gonna like, run through this matchup, run through that matchup. But in reality, he doesn't have that many great matchups left in the game with the new age defenders coming in, which again, isn't his fault, it's just the game is moving in different direction of what he does. He still has some places and some times where he is one of the best options. I will completely agree to that. I do think he does provide value, and there is a reason why people still do enjoy him. But at the same time, I don't see him making a massive impact on constant basis, I'll put it like that. And a champion that's in a bit similar boat, but I'd say is kind of aging somewhat better, and that is Black Cat. And one of the reasons why I think Black Cat is doing somewhat better than Shang-Chi is mainly because she can also switch off nodes and kind of work against the nodes and safeguard mechanics, because that is becoming more popular in the champions. But her ability to switch that off, as well as to get kind of like alternate source of damage, I think is keeping her a bit ahead of Shang-Chi. Obviously, Shang-Chi is much better when it comes to shrugging off debuffs, and he is better than Black Cat is at, immediate evade and unstoppable control. Black Cat still shuts down evade very well, though, with ability accuracy reduction in general. And Black Cat's always one of the most satisfying champions to play. I cannot tell you how nice it feels when you kind of like get that level 2 off, get some good bleeds, keep them paused, and it is so nice. At the same time, Black Cat's always one of those champions that I'm often thinking about ranking, but I never really end up ranking. And she's always kind of lagging a rank behind. And that's kind of like a common theme with like a subgenre of champions that I would like to rank because I enjoy them. But at the same time, there's always something a bit more urgent, a bit more pressing for me to hit that rank up button on. But she's still a versatile offensive champion. She always manages to get a matchup or two that, she works in that people wouldn't necessarily expect her to. And yeah, I do like that. And you can see her around here and there. Moving on, spot number 13. Spot number 13 is going to go to Mantis. And there's no different way to put it. Mantis is falling off right now. She just is. For quite a while, Mantis was easily in top 10 of skill champions, but we hardly see her now. And one of the reasons would be that she can't deal with the weight. And Spider-Woman being a defensive threat. Obviously, she's one of the best like photon counters, but photon isn't like as dominant in the game, so therefore it doesn't seem like you need another dedicated champion to counter photon at the time, whilst you have to worry about like Dark Phoenix, Captain Britain, so on and so forth. So Mantis just kind of naturally is fading away slowly here and there. Again, there will be times when we see her because they're tranquilized at 100% potency and that massive level 2 to finish off the fights. All of that is useful. Ironically, I think she's quite good in this current meta with the power stings and your ability to get level 2 quicker. But other than that, I have hardly been seeing her in the recent times in the game. What else can I say about Mantis? Like, one of the more frustrating things with this champion quite frequently is the metas where you kind of need to either alternate your special attacks or drop a heavy attack in an inconvenient moment. And I guess that's an inherent weakness that's always bugged me a little bit with Mantis, no pun intended, because she has a fairly rigid playstyle. You cannot alternate your specials. There's this exact specific thing that you have to do. You need to, ramp her up, and then you need to charge a heavy attack, and then you need to change it into the special, but you can't be freely dropping your heavies, or you're going to be wasting your fury, basically, and there we are. I do think she's a good champion. We'll see if she makes a comeback. That entirely kind of depends on what type of champions come on releases and how well Science Class are doing in general. If Science Class had like more relevant defensive core that Mantis happens to counter, I think she would be more popular, but as it stands right now, not quite the case. Moving on, spot number 12, I'm going to give it to Moleman. First of all, I'm still angry at Kabam for what they did to my boy. Very angry. If Moleman would still have his true accuracy active whilst you are able to enter Frenzy, he would be well better champion. Strongly believe that. Second of all, I am kind of happy to see him here and there making a comeback. He's not great, listen. He used to be like a reasonably solid defender. He's absolutely not anymore that. And also offensively, his matchup list is kind of shrinking, much like with many of the champions below his list. But again, the fact that he does access bleed and he does access the shock, and there are the guaranteed crits involved, and there's the guaranteed debuff shrug, but there are ways and times when you can make this work again. Like recently we had a skill meta where, you know, many of these champions that were just mentioned turned out to be an absolute menaces for the debuff shrug. And Moleman kind of like regained public's consciousness, I guess, at that point. But still, throughout the quest and throughout the game, he still has value. Like he has value in AQ. He is one of those champions that pops up fairly frequently, I'd say. And with him entering the base pool, I'd kind of expect him to get even a bit more visible. But at the same time, he's absolutely not the top 5 skill champion that he once was, just because of how far the game has moved and how many of the matchups he's like relatively incapable of handling well. Speaking of one champion that has overtaken him is Hitmonkey. But Hitmonkey also doesn't have like the best story here. Like, listen, Hitmonkey is cool. Like, absolutely nukey champion. Rank 4 Hitmonkey seems like a very scary attacker. Initially, when Hitmonkey got released, I automatically put him in top 10. I gave him the 10th spot on the last list as well. And he was kind of like a terrifying attacker. And we thought that's going to be like a good bonus to skill class where we're going to get some nice, you know, potential for the class. But in reality, it hasn't really translated all that well in the game. I know a fair amount of guys who has a rank 4 Hitmonkey and kind of regret it just because, like, how many times can't really end up using him. And again, it's kind of like a matchup type situation here. And Hitmonkey is scary, and he's like a super fast champion, but it only matters when you can actually do the defender. But when opponents, again, are putting down all the, you know, Serpents, Dark Phoenixes, Captain Britons, this and that and that. And you get kind of like suboptimal results there, I'd say. And bit of a shame. Overall, it's just, I think at this point, kind of his age is showing slightly more than a couple of champions that are going to be ahead of him. But my little monkey, wish he was doing a little better. At the same time, you know, there's still inherent value. There's still, you know, matchups and stuff that he can absolutely do. And in the times that he will work, he will likely be just about the fastest option. Moving on, spot number 10th, I'm getting to Chee'ilth. Like, Chee'ilth is like in this very weird spot. Chee'ilth has never been at the top of the class, and I don't think Chee'ilth is ever going to fall like into complete irrelevance either, because she has some of the best cleanse mechanics in the game, and that has value. Obviously, insanely consistent like bleed damage that you can ramp up under specific conditions too. There's some fairly sneaky matchups that she's able to accomplish, especially when awakened. And in between that, Tranquilize and her bypassing Miss Den and ability to ignore the Unstoppable. And perhaps most importantly, her being a tanky and a half-decent defender as well. She just kind of manages to pop up, really, when it was the skill meta or in the current meta. She has some presence, or when you're looking for some dots. She's, in my mind, still one of the concrete definitions of a solid champion. Not amazingly exciting, not bad, not like the best choice for anything, just about, but also hardly ever the worst one. And that's why I'm giving her the spot number 10. Spot number 9, Stealth Suit Spider-Man. Now, this might still alternate because majority of the player base still hasn't received the Stealth Suit Spider-Man, and we do see him popping in the competitive game once more. Obviously, it's to do with his damage output, and it's to do with his slow being, quote-unquote, the upgraded version of slow, and he's effectively able to bypass miss as well as evade and unstoppable. So that in itself kind of provides him with better utility than, you know, most of the champions that would be handling, let's say, unstoppable, or, you know, has access to slow. Like previously from the champions we mentioned, we have Shang-Chi that does the slow, but this slow is better, and, you know, damage is arguably higher. And, you know, Moleman can shut down their weight on the cost of his damage. And we have Chee'ilth that shuts down the unstoppable, but he does the most because his miss is like the best one. And obviously he's a glass cannon. He's a nuke type of champion, but because he bypasses miss, because he can deal with unstoppable and evade, he is expected and he is achieving somewhat higher results whilst maintaining super high damage output. At the same time, he's still kind of suffering from a similar thing that Hitmonkey is, where the matchups are slowly kind of fading. You know, again, the lack of defensive relevance for the science class is a fairly big factor, I would say. There's only a handful of champions that are currently relevant defenders. And with that, you know, he has to go around the class wheel, and he isn't doing necessarily as great as some other options further down up the list will be doing. But still, you know, obviously a good thing that he got released as a 7-star. I know a lot of people love him, and there we go. Spot number 8, we have Lumatrix. And Lumatrix, again, he came into the game, and he got more hype than he has held on to. That's how I'm going to put him. I don't want to call him a champion on the downslide, because I don't think we are there yet, but definitely initially when he got released, you could see him like often and just about everywhere, and now he's nowhere near as visible. At the same time, he is a mainstay. At this point, I think these 8 champions and above are champions that we do see consistently and frequently. Even the spots 15 till spot 9 are the ones that we can see frequently, but these are the ones that we can see constantly. And Lumatrix is one of them, because despite what Kabam says with his defensive evaluation of 3.5, no, it's defense of 3. That's I thought that's a bit wrong. So defensive evaluation of 3. He, in specific conditions especially, is more than a 3 defender. Like, if you can't parry him, he immediately becomes significantly more dangerous and effectively demands a counter, because you can't punish his heavies, you can't punish him after the special attacks, and that alone kind of synergizes well with a ton of metas and goes against how plenty of champions operate, and they demand you punish opponent's special attacks. And against Lumatrix, you just can't, because he's either going to evade or you're going to miss. And therefore, here we are. He obviously has access to Fractured Power Bar, because he is an idle champion. He is a fairly atypical skill champion, that he doesn't put on any debuffs, for instance, on the opponent doesn't do anything. He effectively just crits hardcore. He has Endurance passive as a matter of, non-damaging debuff counter, which again is becoming kind of more important and more significant in the game right now, I would say. Again, he has fairly unique playstyles, and I genuinely love his design. I think like the one thing that would make him like currently like a better, more popular champion, just like literally the one thing is like if he didn't have to ramp up to like 8 charges, but it would be like 5 or something. And if you gave him like slightly faster ramp up, he would be well more popular, because once he gets there, his damage output is top notch. His damage output is absolutely awesome, but he takes a bit of, ramping up, and that is, I think, the only thing that's kind of holding him back from being well more popular in the game than he is right now. At the same time, this is one of those places where I'm going to say, like, I like what Kabam has done here. I like designs like this, and I love the fact that you can alternate the way you play him. You can alternate, how quickly you want to ramp up and how you're going to get there, or you can alternate which special attacks you're going to be throwing. Obviously, there is like the ideal rotations you want to go for, but it's not like an obligatory must type of situation. And you can extend his like damage loop effectively, where you can go super mega aggro and go in for a kill with forcing opponents to miss, push them into like, the red power bar, and just try and hope and finish off the fight like that. And yeah, I do like him. I generally do. I don't think he's the best idol. Maybe not even close. Honestly, there's a chance he's the 3rd best idol now. But unlike Isophene, I think he's actually a worthwhile, valuable, decently good addition to the game that I personally enjoy using, and I like kind of a bit more quirky playstyle like that. Moving on, spot number 6, I'm going to give it to Baron Zemo, and here's the thing. I hate the guy. I really do. He's been nothing but trouble. And he's the type of champion that's generally garbage. Like in a vanilla situation, he's awful. He is. Like, if you're fighting him in arena, he's not a hard opponent to go up against if you have half decent counter. And if you're using him against like any random champion, bring him in against Red Hulk. He's going to get class advantage, and he's still going to be garbage. Eventually, you can ramp him up as like, fairly decent damage output, but in general, he's going to be fairly garbo. And I don't like that. I really don't. Especially how hyped he was for a time. It's like, I have a beef with this man, okay? But I can't deny that he's relevant. And he pops up way frequently that anybody should be able to admit it. because he's consistently good for like random boss fights. He's consistently good for some random quests and challenges and stuff like that. And also, without fail, he's good for some very specific defensive placements in AW because of his like stupid ass AI and interactions with different nodes and stuff like that. And likewise, you know, fairly frequently he becomes a menace on defense in Battlegrounds, and fairly frequently he becomes a menace on attack in Battlegrounds too, because you know, his cleanses and then roots and the way he interacts with them. And then if opponent does get rooted, you know, you can just kind of go ham. And there are like few specific matchups that he's like very good against in a generic situation too, like against Photon, for example. And he's stupid. I don't like him. He's dumb and bad. But here are three things. Number one, popularity is definitely aided by prestige, and I'm not ranking these champions by prestige, but it is impossible to deny if a champion is like top 20 prestige, more people will end up ranking up the champion, and more people will end up trying to use it and master it. So basically what I'm trying to say is if a champion has a better prestige, I'm not giving that champion a higher ranking, but naturally people are going to try and make that champion work more often, and if they're successful, you know, that champion has deserved its place in the sun because he's relevant, he's dealing with problems, and he's currently present and impactful in the game. And having high prestige is just kind of helps people pick you up initially. And you know, if a champion's bad, it makes no difference. Like Infamous Iron Man, for instance, you know, super high prestige, nobody cares. Whereas Zemo, he definitely has gotten a few extra chances because of his prestige. But I'm not ranking them for prestige. And that's the second thing, is I kind of feel like Kabam's always throwing him a bone. Like every other month or every couple of months, Kabam's going to release a piece of content or a meta or something that Baron Zemo is just kind of perfect for. And again, like in a generic situation, I wouldn't even bat an eye on this waffle. But no, and then Kabam released like, oh, look at that, you're getting like 5 debuffs on parry. Cool. Baron Zemo is OP now. And Kabam does that all the time. So regardless of how much I don't like him, he's kind of good in the game. I'll begrudgingly come to accept and respect him, I guess. Next up, spot number 5, Black Panther Civil War. And this might be a little bit of a paradox, but again, it's not necessarily a popularity context. Baron Zemo, I think, is more popular than Black Panther Civil War because he's got the things working against him. He's the type of champion that doesn't have high prestige and demands 6,200. Those are the 6 tons that often people are not willing to give to him because of low prestige necessarily. And he's the type of champion that requires significant investment. But demands a menace. Like, if you see Black Panther Civil War, let's say in Battlegrounds, at rank 4, 6,200, there's a very high likelihood you want to ban that fucker. Especially because you might not know what matchups he does. The fact that he can, like, do most of the mutants incredibly well for whatever reason is kind of baffling to me. Like, he's a good Captain Britain counter. He's also, like, perfectly respectable Jean Grey counter. And he's also perfectly fine against this, that, and that. And then, you know, he happens to be good against Yelena, and he happens to be good against that. And he's a very scary offensive champion. He has some limited defensive value as well, and if you do slip up against him, that can be very painful. But realistically, it's just the way he delivers damage, where you do not have to hit the opponent a lot, and then you just kind of like heavy into a special too, and then there's a lot of burst damage, and then there are the bleeds to finish off the work, and that's it. He's one of those champions that does demand max investment, though. I do have to warn you on that. But offensively, he's like one of the more versatile and current champions, I'd say. If I would have to say of all the champions from here till the end, he's like, yeah, one of the best offensive skills with one of the best layout of matchups. So I do think he deserves spot number 5. Arguably higher, but we'll get to see that. Moving on, spot number 4, sorry. That was spot number 6. Spot number 5 is Bullseye. I'm missing out my numbers. Spot number 5 is Bullseye. And here's the thing about Bullseye. He has lost a lot of ground. Mutants are tearing him apart, and there's a whole bunch of non-mutants that are kind of very good against him. And he's nowhere near the defensive threat in general that he once was. At the same time, he is a champion that does demand counter effectively, or you lose round. He is a champion that synergizes incredibly well with outside factors in different metas. For instance, you know, when you do increase his power gain, he becomes a menace. Or if you do increase like block damage or his damage through block or something like that, he again immediately becomes significantly more dangerous. And likewise, he is incredibly good on attack, actually, under specific conditions. He's one of those champions that interacts incredibly well with any type of damage modification, because all his hits are guaranteed crits, and you know the bleed bursts are also subject to his attack modification, and you know he can access his like passive stat on level 2, which is all going to be guaranteed crits, and you're going to have like a fairly extensive follow-up, so you can kind of go on a nuki streak with him into, you know, evade into level 2, into stun, into combo, into relic, into combo, into level 1, and you know he would have had a half decent damage. That would be devastating. That's basically what Deadpool X-Force does to close out the fights. And under specific nodes and under specific conditions, he can offensively behave like Deadpool X-Force type champion too. So I still think he has value. I do think that there's a very good chance I'm going to rank him lower next time around. We'll see. But again, it's undeniable that the man is not the myth and not the legend anymore. The man is seemingly on the sunset of his MCOC relevance days, and we'll see if he witnesses some revival. But it's kind of funny how intimidating, how depressingly unapproachable this champion once was, like a year and some ago, and now he's just there. He's another defender. But the thing that, again, I think saves him is his absolute versatility offensively across the game and under specific conditions in battlegrounds too. Alright, spot number 4, it's Yelena, and I discussed Yelena quite a bit in 2025 video, and the basic idea with Yelena effectively is, again, she came in like here on defense. I grind for her as a 6-star, and as a 6-star, she absolutely wrecked everybody for like a month. And the results are starting to go down because, number one, people learn how to fight her better. Like, if you learn how to dex Yelena's level 2 reliably, like, the difficulty level of the fight goes by like 30%. Because you can be much quicker, she doesn't get the impact passive, then even if she does enter the elimination mode, you know, you don't really care about it because you can still do the mediums and into special attack to finish out the fights. And that, again, opens up plenty of the champions and different rotations, and you can be aggressive enough against her. And then again, you know, just through sheer trial and error, we found more and more champions that do her reasonably well. And don't get me wrong, she, unlike Bullseye, is, again, I think, managing to preserve her better, because she absolutely does demand, like, specific type of counters, and, you know, things can still go wrong. And similarly to Bullseye, she's kind of underrated offensively, in my opinion, and even, like, current, you know, metas, she's, you know, somewhat competent counter to Spider-Woman and, you know, Photon and Thing and Nico. I use her to beat Nico's now and then. She's never going to be like the fastest at that, but, you know, in a pinch, it often does kind of work out, because like when you draft her, you are absolutely forcing opponent to have a response to your Yelena, and then if you turn around and use your Yelena on attack somewhere at the end, you know, that is like one of those winning plays, how you could call it, I suppose, at times. But again, the defensive impact is definitely on the down low, and we'll see what ends up of her, but still plenty of value. So, top 3 champions. In spot number 3, I'm getting to Crossbones. I know that there's a whole bunch of people convinced that Crossbones is like the best skill champion in the game, and under conditions he is, but at the same time there is, like, you know, the stress of managing, knowing exactly what to do, fairly high skill cap, fairly high AI dependency, and one of those things with Crossbones is like you're theoretically capable of doing an insane amount of fights, but if AI does do you a bit dirty, those fights can go from amazing to absolutely awful. And then there's the subset of fights where with Crossbones you're just gonna destroy. Like, you know, for instance, if you draft, I don't know, Photon and your opponent drafts Crossbones, your hand just kind of sinks because Crossbones can run through that in like 40 seconds of that. But ultimately, he is one of the more versatile skill attackers that highly rewards skillful play. And if you do not like Crossbones, it is likely because you're not, you know, using him or particularly great with him. And if you think Crossbones is much better than I'm ranking him, then it's possibly because you're much better with Crossbones, and I am incapable of using him to the degree that you are. So he's definitely one of those champions where, like, you know, the key lies in the driver. But at the same time, you know, Spider-Woman, she's basically kind of like think, countering the science class the best. And I don't want to say like he's like the token skill champion, but he's like the embodiment of skill champion you just kind of want to have access to, for whatever science type of things opponents are going to throw on defense. And as it turns out, he's great gentle counter. And as it turns out, he's like okay Captain Britain counter. And as it turns out, he can do like these, and random matchups. But again, most of those are fairly kind of skill intensive. But if you just want to use him to shut down skill class, you can absolutely do that very easily. And again, anything that skill class has, Crossbones shuts down just about the best. Even better than the champion that I'm going to put above. But here we are. Spot number 2, I'm giving Nick Fury. Because he's just hanging in there. Like a one tough old mother. 1 second. I do actually have a Nick clip that I do want to play. Haven't played it in a while.
Okay, that is the last time you are gonna pull that crap. You hear me?
Yes!
Do you hear me?
Yes!
Now you are gonna hold down that football until Charlie Brown kicks it. You got that?
There you go, that's Nick Fury. And ultimately, again, the second life is what makes him work, and his debuff shrug is quite reliable, access to consistent and reliable bleeds. Offensively, he's still, like, he's again one of those champions you can easily draft, and there will be metas where he's crazy on attack, there will be metas where he's, like, okay on attack. But then you can finish the fights in, like, fairly casual, decent pace if he does the matchup. And then there's going to be another plethora of matchups that you can cheese by utilizing his second life region, where effectively you can, use your Nick against, like, I don't know, Electros and Atumas and many different random fights where you just, Dark Phoenixes, where you just kind of, like, kill yourself just before opponent's dead, regain full health, and, immediately kill opponent. And that is still a very viable, skillful strategy that does help him become, kind of like clutch in moments. And then, yeah, there's the generic defensive value with him having second life. Even though there are plenty of nukes, there are a handful of champions that does stop his second life too. But again, just the versatility, they can switch him from attack and defense. And then, there's always things that can get wrong against him. He's still surprisingly effective on defense. And he's, again, one of those staples in the game that you just kind of see everywhere. So I do think that Nick's just aging very, very well. Like, there is, I don't think, not much doubt about whether Nick is relevant, present, and constantly, there as a champion, and he absolutely is. And unlike, like, Yelena and Bullseye, I think his longevity is in well better hands. Well, I think he has much better chance to be relevant a year from now than, let's say, Bullseye or Yelena has. So I think he's like a very kind of like stable, reliable type champion in the game, and I have always appreciated him. And the best champion, the valuation I'm going to give to Okoye. And it's not necessarily even that she takes the most matchups. I think her value comes from like 3 different things. 2 for sure. Number 1, she's incredibly good at going outside of the class wheel. She just happens to, for instance, make a whole bunch of skill defenders kind of irrelevant. Like, she is, ironically, the traitor of the class. Right? Because if you take a look at the rest of these champions, like, who counters Bullseye how well? Like, we have Nick Fury. Like, yeah, you can, do the cheese thing, and it's going to be like a 60-second fight, and you can Nick Fury a Bullseye, but it's not, like, nothing impressive. Then there's Crossbones, and that's not a good matchup. And then there's Yelena, and that's not a great matchup. You do, but you can take some damage on the Bullseye himself. Black Panther Civil War, again, you can take some damage because you're going to have to eat at least, like, 1 level 1 in block. There's Baron Zemo, is like not great. Lumatrix, like not great. Still, Spidey, not necessarily the best. Chee'ilth, not necessarily the best. Okoye just annihilates Bullseye, for instance. Right? Because, I mean, she does. She's like one of the fastest Bullseye counters in the game, never mind needing class advantage. She's also like, one of the better Nick counters because she can annihilate Nick very well. She's one of the best Yelena counters. She can annihilate Yelena. So, first of all, she's the Judas of the class. She kind of, having Okoye, I think, has hurt skill class as much as it has helped in areas of the game. So there you go. She annihilates her own. That's 1. Number 2, she goes incredibly well outside of the class wheel and makes a trip around the world. And she just does random champs that she has no business of doing, and she doesn't just do them well, she does them, you know, close to the best in the game. And again, like Dark Phoenix, she's legitimately one of the best Dark Phoenix counters. She just is. Okay, maybe outside of the perfect ones, like, you know, the new Spidey or Nico, stuff like that, she's up there. She's amazing for that fight. And then, you know, she's good against some random Sentinels and this and that, and kind of crazy. She doesn't have the widest matchup list, but again, like, when she does a matchup, she will generally do it incredibly well. And then, obviously, you know, she makes Spider-Woman completely obsolete on defense when you have Okoye, and she does basically the same for Photon. And she's currently one of the most significant and relevant offensive champions in the game. Because, again, she doesn't do that just in Battlegrounds. She does the same things in Alliance War. She's also one of the champions that answers the challenge in, like, quest modes and longer type fights. And in reality, I think the kind of, like, the brilliance of Okoye comes from basically three things. Number one, super easy to access a weight counter that has some ability accuracy reduction. The fact that you can just dex and put on that 30% ability accuracy reduction on opponent, and opponent just can't evade, period. One of the most OP, easy to access, always there type of weight counters that we have in game. So number one, she's basically the best at, like, that. Number two, she has access to kind of like fragmented, versatile source of damage that doesn't rely on, like, big bursts. As in, she does damage constantly throughout the fight, and she can stack it up to a ridiculous degree. And it's bleed and shock, and it doesn't matter if opponent's kind of immune to one of those things. So there are very few champions that she can't damage. And that's good, right? Obviously, that is very, very good. Because that, again, just increases the list of matchups she can do. She absolutely sneaks under all safeguard and that type of mechanics. And she's crazy good for that. And the reason number three, and I think this is one of the most important things as well, she has the most flexible playstyle. Her playstyle effectively is hit the opponent. You know, there is, like, obviously level 2 is like the big damage, and then ideally you do want to drop a heavy attack to kind of like pause all those debuffs and all that stuff. But effectively, you know, you can get very, very good and fast results as long as you're aggressive and you're hitting the opponent. It doesn't matter that much which special attack you use. It doesn't matter, you know, that much whether you do the refreshes or not. As long as you can manage to be aggressive and, you know, maintain your tempo and rhythm, that's it. Like, if you're using her, for instance, on any of the encroaching nodes, you know, time is about to expire, just fire away special attack. It's not going to mess your damage rotation up that much, which, you know, is not the case for most of the champions these days. Which is not, you know, the case, I don't know, for... Let's use, I don't know, Penny Parker as an example. You can't just willy-nilly keep throwing your level 1s, because then your charge is going to start to expire, your big damage cash outs on level 2 anyways, and there you go. You know, the fight's not going to go your way if you need to activate special attacks in... I'm not going to say random order, but at random times and outside of your plan. And again, the same thing goes for, like, a ton of champions. You can't do that with Mantis, for instance, you know? You can't just randomly throw 2 level 1s and then go to your level 2 and hope the fight's going to look remotely the same. You can with Okoye, because both of the special attacks inflict debuffs, a bunch of them, they kind of like pause them up, and you still do a ton of damage. And you have absolute freedom in how you use this champion, what kind of combos do you throw. Keep hitting the opponent and they're going to go down. So, I think Okoye is, again, an awesome, amazing champion and a great addition to the game. So that has been my skill rank up video. I will release the list now. So this is how the list looked like, from Okoye to Nick Fury up until Black Cat and Shang-Chi. We are going to be doing top 15s, but only because you guys asked. I really kind of find more I am a bit more comfortable with top 10s, but fine, it's going to be top 15s. And the next video in the series, as you can see, is going to be Science top 15. Catch you guys soon. Bye-bye. Hello there, guys, and welcome back to the channel. So we have all the information about the next